In the world of business, statements like, I had no idea, or I didn't know, those are usually negative. For example, if we're working on a project and one of the files related to that project changes and we weren't aware of it, and maybe we're working on an older document, or we simply didn't understand that there was new information, that could harm our overall productivity, especially if we're relying on the data in what we think is a current document. And one of the solutions that we can use for that is the concept of alerts. And in this nugget, I'd like to talk with you about setting up an alert either on a file, or if we want to know about an entire document library and be notified regarding changes in the whole document library, we can set up an alert for the document library as well. And one of the cool features is this regarding alerts. If you and I want to be made aware when a web page is changed or modified, because those pages are simply files in a library, we can set up alerts either for the library that contains our web pages or on the individual web pages themselves. So in our hands-on lab environment, we're logged on currently to our Windows 10 machine right now. We're logged on as Bob with our lab password that we've used many times. And let's go ahead and open up a browser. So we'll click on Chrome right here in the taskbar, and we'll connect over to our SharePoint server, which is at srv1.nuglab.com. And if this is the first time you're connecting, for example, you just launched the lab and you're connecting, the initial connection and the initial web page may take just a few moments. And it's kind enough to tell us that it's working on it, which is great. For our demonstration, let's go to the engineering site. We have a couple options. We can go to the engineering link on the top or over here on the left. Either one will get us there. And let's go to the document library for files for Project Banana using the quick launch over here on the left-hand side. So let's walk through the process of setting up an alert on an individual file first. Let's go ahead and start with Doc2. So notice right here we have a check mark next to it and it is highlighted. And with Doc2 highlighted up in the top left, we'll go ahead and click on the Files tab, which brings up the ribbon for Files. And with the Files tab selected, it is right, it should be right here. That's where the alert option is going to exist for this file that we have selected. Now, one of the reasons that it may not show up is if we don't have an email or a text messaging system set up in our SharePoint environment, that would be one reason why the option for setting up an alert isn't there. It has to have some way of actually sending out the alert. So let's go ahead and check that out. Let's go ahead and minimize this browser. And what I'd like to do is right from our Windows 10 machine, I'm going to click on this gear icon over here on the left-hand side, which is a shortcut to take us over to central administration for our SharePoint server that is running on our Windows 2016 server. So I'll go ahead and double click the SharePoint admin to bring that up. We'll log in as administrator with our lab password of NUGGET exclamation mark 23 with a capital N at the beginning. And we'll click on OK to log on. Again, this is to the central administration page. This is where we went originally in this course to create our top level site. So just as a reminder of where we're at server1.nuglab.com using the specific port 6783 because when the SharePoint was originally installed, they chose that port number for central administration of the quote-unquote behind-the-scenes nuts and bolts of the SharePoint environment. So we are connected there now, and over here on the left, we are going to click on System Settings. And what I want to do is just set up an outbound email server so that the SharePoint environment believes it has the ability to send an alert. So with our system settings area selected, let's click on Configure Outgoing Email Settings here in the center. And let's go ahead and give it some email information. smtp.nuglab.com. From address, we'll say it's from SharePoint at nuglab.com. Reply to address, none@nuglab.com. And do you want to use TLS, yes or no? And what is your SMTP server port? Now, I don't really have an email server at smtp.nuglab.com. There's no email server really there. Now, in a production environment, we'd have a production email server that's actually taking emails and sending messages. In this environment, I'm just putting this information here so that we can see the option for setting up an alert. So we'll click on OK to save that. And with that saved, we'll go ahead and minimize that in case we need to come back. And let's go back to our Chrome browser. Now, this is a static page, so I wouldn't expect it just to show up here without at least a refresh. So let's go ahead and log out and log back in. So I'll use the drop down here. We'll do sign out. We'll close the Chrome browser. We'll relaunch Chrome. And let's reconnect and see whether or not we have the alert option in the file or library tab. So we'll authenticate again as administrator. We'll go to the engineering subsite using the quick launch on the left. and then we'll go to Files for Project Banana using the quick launch on the left. And then let's click on Files. Now at the moment I don't have a file selected, so we'll put a check next to Doc2. And right here we have the Alert Me option. So now that SharePoint believes it can actually send an email message, it's giving us that option for Alert Me regarding this file. So we use the drop down for Alert Me, and right here we can set an alert on this document. So let's do it. So the alert title is going to be included in the email message that's going to be sent. So we can put whatever we want right here. Who is the alert going to be sent to? Currently it's being going to be sent to the system account. Now the system account, I do not have an email set up for that individual yet. So if we wanted an email to really be sent to the system account, there would need to be an email associated with that system account so it can send it to the right destination. And then for the delivery method, we can choose email, or if we have SMS and texting set up from our SharePoint environment, it could potentially send an SMS message, aka a text message, as an alert regarding that file being changed. And if we scroll down a little bit more, we have some options regarding what type of modifications we want alerts for. And options like this one right here, someone else changed the document created by me, would be more appropriate if we had an alert that was set up, for example, on an entire document library instead of just a file. But they give us these options regardless. And then how often do we want to receive the alerts? Do you want it immediately when it happens, or daily, or weekly? And then you can also set up the time of when you want those sent. So I'm going to leave the defaults here and click on OK. And it's giving me a warning about, hey, buddy, you don't have an email address. It's gonna be pretty hard to send you an email if you don't have an email address. And that's okay. Maybe I'll get an email address in the future. But for now, I'll go ahead and just say thank you. Now, it still set the alert. It just simply doesn't have an email address to send the alert to. So that's how we set up an alert on an individual file. Now, if we want to do an alert on the entire document library, all we need to do is go ahead and click on the Library tab, which we'll do right now in the upper left-hand corner. So we'll click on Library. I'm going to do a Control+ to make this just a little bit bigger. And then with that library tab selected, we can simply click on Alert Me and then select the option for set an alert on this library. And then we have those same list of options, but this time they're going to apply to the actual library itself. And we can specify the settings that we want regarding that alert and then go ahead and click on OK. And once again, it's mentioning that we don't have an email address. We'll go ahead and dismiss that message, but it still set up the alerts in the system. And then the question may be, well, what if we've set alerts like hither and yon, and we want to be able to go ahead and simply remove a bunch of them? How do we find all of our alerts in like one easy place? And what they've done for us is if we go back to Alert Me, whether it's on the file level or on a document library, if we use the drop down for Alert Me, and then from that drop down we select Manage My Alerts, it's going to show us our alerts in one place. So if we wanted to remove both of these or one of these, we could simply put a check in the appropriate box. And with the checks there, we could go ahead and delete the selected alerts. Let's go ahead and click on Delete Selected Alerts to get rid of those. We'll click on OK to confirm. And if we wanted to add an alert, we could click on Add Alert right here as well. And that could walk us through the process of identifying where we want to set the alert. So there's our engineering document library, files for Project Banana. There's the site pages for engineering and so forth. And then as we continue through this, once we have our item selected and click on Next, it'll simply walk us through the same options we had previously when we started off at the File or Document Library section regarding setting up an alert. So in this nugget, we went behind the scenes a little bit to central administration to make sure there was an email server set up in the configuration. And as a result of having that, it allowed us to set up the alerts at the File or Document Library level so that with the proper email system set up, we can be made aware of changes that are happening to the content inside of our SharePoint libraries. And now that we've gone through this nugget together, you, my friend, can use the hands-on lab as part of our CBT Nuggets environment to go ahead and practice. And if you do walk through the setting up of alerts, make sure you take the extra step, as we demonstrated in this nugget, of setting up an email server so that the Alert Me option does show up as we demonstrated in this nugget. So have some fun with that. Meanwhile, I hope this has been informative for you, and I'd like to thank you for viewing.